You're sitting in your living room right now, scrolling through your phone, and the weather alert pops up. Severe thunderstorm watch, tornado warning, hurricane approaching. You think you know what to do. You think your basement is enough. You think you've got time. Let me ask you something that's going to make you uncomfortable. What's your actual plan when 200-mile-per-hour winds decide your neighborhood is today's target? Here's what I know with absolute certainty. 99% of people who die in tornadoes and hurricanes had a plan. They had a basement. They had supplies. They thought they were ready. They're dead now. Not because they were stupid, because they trusted conventional wisdom that was designed for average scenarios, not survival scenarios. The difference between making it and becoming a statistic isn't about having more stuff. It's about understanding the physics of what's trying to kill you and positioning yourself in the exact right place at the exact right time. Today, I'm going to show you the storm protocol that actually works when the infrastructure fails, when the warnings stop, when you're on your own. Forget the Red Cross pamphlets. Forget what they taught you in elementary school. I'm going to teach you something they don't cover in public safety announcements. How to read terrain like a tactical map, how to calculate your survival window in minutes instead of hoping for the best, and why the place everyone runs to is often the place that kills them. You can keep scrolling and trust that your homeowner's insurance and good intentions will save you, or you can spend the next 22 minutes learning why tornadoes and hurricanes require completely different survival mathematics. Your choice. But here's the kicker. This information has a shelf life. The next storm doesn't care that you meant to learn this later. If you want to be part of the 1% who actually understand storm physics instead of storm panic, hit subscribe. Drop a comment with your geographic location, and I'll tell you which threat you're statistically most likely to face. Let's get tactical. First thing you need to understand, tornadoes and hurricanes are not the same emergency with different names. They're completely different threat profiles that require opposite survival strategies. Confuse them and you die in a different way, but you still die. Hurricanes give you days, tornadoes give you minutes. That timeline difference changes everything about your decision tree. A hurricane is a siege scenario. You have 72 hours of warning, maybe 96. You can see it coming from space. You can watch it develop, track its path, calculate its landfall within a 50-mile radius. This is an evacuation scenario or a fortification scenario, and you get to choose which based on resource calculation and route analysis. Tornadoes are ambush predators. You get maybe 15 minutes of warning if you're lucky, maybe 5 if you're not, maybe 0 if it's rain-wrapped and spawns out of a supercell at night. The National Weather Service can tell you there's a tornado watch, conditions are favorable. That's not a warning, that's meteorological anxiety. A tornado warning means radar-indicated rotation or someone saw it. By the time you hear that warning, the clock is already ticking and your options are shrinking by the second. Here's the physics that matters. A hurricane is a heat engine powered by warm ocean water. It's massive, it's organized, it's predictable within certain parameters. Wind speeds in a Category 5 max out around 180 miles per hour at the eye wall. Devastating? Absolutely. But the real killer isn't the wind. It's the water. Storm surge, inland flooding, rainfall that dumps 3 feet in 6 hours. 90% of hurricane deaths are water deaths. Tornadoes are chaos wrapped in violence. An EF5 tornado generates winds exceeding 200 miles per hour in a vortex that can be a mile wide or 300 feet wide. But here's what makes tornadoes fundamentally more dangerous at close range. The wind isn't consistent. It's rotational. You're not just getting hit by 200-mile-per-hour wind in one direction. You're getting hit by wind that's spinning, creating differential pressures that rip structures apart from the inside out. A 2x4 traveling at 180 miles per hour doesn't knock you down, it goes through you. So let's talk about what 99% of people get wrong, starting with location selection. Everyone's been taught the same thing. Get to the lowest level of your building, preferably a basement, away from windows. That's not wrong, but it's incomplete to the point of being dangerous. A basement is only a good tornado shelter if it's structurally sound, properly reinforced, and not prone to flooding. Let me paint you a picture of how this goes wrong. Tornado warning issued. You go to your basement like you're supposed to. Tornado hits your house. The entire structure above you, 2 stories of lumber, drywall, furniture, appliances, collapses into the basement. You're not crushed by the tornado. You're crushed by your own house. This is where understanding construction matters. A basement in a newer stick-built suburban home is a concrete box with 8-inch walls, minimal reinforcement, and a wooden structure above it that weighs maybe 80,000 pounds. When that weight comes down, those walls can fail. Older homes, especially in Tornado Alley, often have basements with 12-inch walls, steel reinforced, built to code, and then some. Know the difference. It matters. But here's what nobody talks about. The basement corner. Not just any corner. The interior corner farthest from windows and doors, ideally under a load-bearing wall that's perpendicular to the prevailing wind direction. Why? Because when wind hits a structure, it creates pressure differentials. The windward side gets positive pressure, wind pushing in. The leeward side gets negative pressure, wind sucking out. The corners of a basement, especially interior corners, are compression zones. They're the last things to fail. Now let's talk hurricanes and the myth of riding it out. Every year, some percentage of coastal residents decide they're staying. They've got supplies, they've got a generator, they've weathered storms before. Here's the reality check. If you're in an evacuation zone and you stay, you're betting your life that the storm surge models are wrong. Storm surge is not a wave. It's not a flood you can float through. It's a wall of ocean rising 10, 15, 20 feet above sea level, pushing inland at the speed of the storm, filled with debris that includes cars, boats, and parts of other people's houses. Run the numbers. A Category 4 hurricane can generate a 15-foot storm surge. Your single-story house has a floor elevation of maybe 8 feet above sea level if you're lucky. That means 7 feet of water inside your house, moving at 5 to 10 miles per hour, filled with debris acting as battering rams. You can't swim in that. You can't breathe in that. You can't survive that. This is why evacuation zones exist. It's not suggestions. It's physics. But let's say you're inland, outside the surge zone, in a structure that can handle Category 3 winds. Now we're talking about a fortification scenario. This is where hurricane survival becomes about preparation time. You have 72 hours. Use them. Every minute you spend watching the news instead of executing your preparation protocol is a minute you won't get back. Window protection isn't about preventing glass from breaking. It's about preventing wind from entering your structure. Here's the physics. Wind hits your house. Some windows break. Now you have wind inside and outside creating competing pressure zones. The roof lifts off. The walls collapse outward. 5/8-inch plywood, properly mounted with bolts, not nails, creates a sealed envelope. Wind stays outside. Pressure stays balanced. Structure stays intact. This is engineering, not carpentry. Interior safe rooms are your hurricane basement equivalent, a closet or bathroom on the ground floor. Interior walls, no windows, preferably under a staircase if you have a second story. The staircase acts as a diagonal brace, adding structural rigidity. Multiple walls between you and the exterior. If the roof goes, the debris falls around you, not on you. And here's the detail that saves lives. Bring a helmet, not a bicycle helmet. A construction helmet or climbing helmet, rated for impact. Because even in your safe room, falling debris can kill you. Now let's talk about the reconnaissance most people never do. Tornado preparedness isn't about the 5 minutes of warning. It's about the 5 years before the warning. You need to know your terrain like a tactical map, because tornadoes don't move randomly. They follow terrain features, temperature gradients, and pressure systems. Rivers and valleys funnel tornadoes. Ridges and hills can disrupt them, but not always. There's this persistent myth that tornadoes don't cross water. Wrong. They absolutely cross water. They just sometimes weaken when crossing because the temperature differential disrupts the vortex. Sometimes. Not always. Do not bet your life on topography saving you. What you need to map. Every substantial structure within a 5-mile radius that has a basement or safe room and is not your house. Schools, churches, public buildings, even commercial warehouses. Because if you're caught in a vehicle during a tornado warning, you need options. A ditch is better than a car, but a reinforced building is better than a ditch. Know where they are, know the routes, know the access points. And here's the detail nobody thinks about. Know which ones have south or west-facing entrances. Tornadoes in the northern hemisphere predominantly move southwest to northeast. An entrance on the east or north side means you can access it while the tornado is still approaching from the west or south. An entrance on the west side means you might be running into the debris field to reach safety. Angles matter. Let's talk about the timeline compression scenario, the nighttime tornado with zero warning. You're asleep. The power's out because the storm already took down the grid. Your phone's emergency alert screams. You have maybe 90 seconds. What's your protocol? This is where muscle memory matters. No thinking, only executing. Basement corner if you have one. Interior bathroom if you don't. Mattress over you if there's time. Helmets on everyone. Hunker down, arms protecting head and neck. This is not comfortable. This is not dignified. This is compression into the smallest, most protected space possible. And here's the dark humor of tornado survival. The survival position is the same as the crash position on an airplane. You know why? Because the physics of high-speed impact don't care whether it's a plane hitting ground or debris hitting you. You're protecting your head and neck because those are the only parts that matter. Everything else can be repaired. Now let's talk about what happens after the storm passes, because this is where most people drop their guard and die anyway. Post-tornado environment is a debris field filled with downed power lines, natural gas leaks, compromised structures, and contaminated water. You just survived the main event. Don't die in the after-party. Power lines. Treat every downed line as energized. Always. The line itself might be dead, but it could be touching something that's conducting. Or the grid could come back online while you're touching it. Maintain minimum 20 feet of clearance. Route around. If you absolutely must cross, use non-conductive material and don't touch anything simultaneously. Natural gas. If you smell it, evacuate the area immediately. No electronics. No open flames, no sparks. Natural gas is heavier than air in concentration. It pools in low areas. Basements become death traps. If your structure took a direct hit and you smell gas, get out and stay out. Let the professionals handle it when they arrive. If they arrive. Hurricanes have a different post-event threat matrix. Flooding doesn't stop when the storm passes. It gets worse. Rivers crest 12 to 24 hours after peak rainfall. Storm drains fail. Infrastructure collapses. And here's the one that kills people every single year, driving into flooded roads. 6 inches of moving water can knock you down. 1 foot can float a car. 2 feet will sweep away most vehicles, including trucks. You cannot see the road surface. You cannot judge the depth. You cannot assess the current. That gentle-looking water might be moving at 8 miles per hour with enough force to pin you against a tree and drown you while you watch. Water contamination is the other post-hurricane killer that takes weeks to manifest. Flood water in an urban environment is a toxic soup. Sewage, chemicals, oil, heavy metals, bacteria, and God knows what else from industrial sites. Touch it, and you're risking infection. Drink it, and you're risking death. Any water source that was touched by floodwater is compromised until proven otherwise. This includes wells, cisterns, and stored water in containers that weren't sealed. Now here's where we get into the tactical preparation that separates survivors from corpses. The 72-hour pre-hurricane protocol. When the storm is 3 days out, you execute a checklist. Not when it's convenient. Not when you feel like it. 3 days out, you start. Day 3, water acquisition. 1 gallon per person per day, minimum. For a family of 4 planning a 7-day siege, that's 28 gallons. That's not just drinking water. That's sanitation, cooking, and cleaning. Fill every container you own. Fill your bathtub. Fill your sinks. Fill your washing machine if you're desperate. The water stays on until it doesn't, and when it doesn't, you can't get it back. Day 3. Food inventory. Minimum 1 week of shelf-stable food that requires no refrigeration and minimal cooking. Rice, beans, canned goods, peanut butter, crackers. Calculate calories, not meals. An adult needs minimum 1,500 calories per day to maintain function under stress. Do the math. 7 days, 4 people, 1,500 calories each, 42,000 calories. That's roughly 60 pounds of food. Day 2. Fuel acquisition. Gasoline for generator if you have one. Propane for cooking if you don't. Lines will be forming, stations will run dry. Get there early. Fill everything. And here's the detail. Fuel stabilizer. Gasoline degrades in 30 days without it. You might be storing this fuel for next season. Add stabilizer now. Day 2. Medical preparation. Check your first aid supplies. Check your prescriptions. If you're on critical medication and you're down to a 3-day supply, you're already in trouble. Get refills authorized early. Stock up on over-the-counter medications, pain relievers, antidiarrheals, antibiotics if you can get them. Assume medical care will be unavailable for 7 days minimum. Day 1. Final structure hardening. Plywood goes up. Outdoor furniture comes inside or gets secured. Anything that can become a projectile gets neutralized. Trash cans, lawn chairs, grills, decorations. At 150 miles per hour, your neighbor's plastic chair goes through your window like a missile. Day 1. Communication protocol. Establish a rally point with family members who evacuated. Establish a contact outside the disaster zone who can relay messages. Cell towers will fail. Internet will fail. Landlines will fail. You need a communication plan that doesn't depend on infrastructure. And here's the protocol nobody follows. Test your gear. Test your generator. Test your radio. Test your flashlights. Finding out your generator doesn't work during the hurricane is not a learning opportunity. It's a death sentence. Now let's talk about the psychological element that kills prepared people. Decision paralysis during the event. The storm is here. The power's out. The wind is screaming. Something just hit your house. Do you investigate? Do you move? Do you wait? Here's the protocol. If your safe room is compromised, you move to secondary location immediately, not in 5 minutes. Now, hesitation kills. If water is rising in your hurricane shelter, you go up. If structure is failing in your tornado shelter, you compress tighter into the corner. Movement during the event is a last resort, but last resorts happen. Hurricane eye passage creates a dangerous illusion. The wind stops. The rain stops. The sun might even come out. This is the eye, the center of the storm. It lasts maybe 30 minutes to an hour. Then the backside of the eye wall hits, winds from the opposite direction, potentially stronger than the first side. People die in the eye because they think it's over. They leave shelter. They go outside to check damage. They're standing in their yard when the back wall arrives. The eye is not safety. The eye is a trap. You stay sheltered until official all clear, which won't come for hours after the storm passes. Let me teach you something about wind physics that changes your threat assessment. Wind damage isn't linear. It's exponential. The difference between 130 mile per hour winds and 150 mile per hour winds isn't 20 miles per hour of damage. It's a completely different category of destruction. Wind force increases with the square of velocity. Double the wind speed. Quadruple the force. 100 mile per hour wind generates 100 pounds of pressure per square foot. A 200 mile per hour wind generates 400 pounds per square foot. Your exterior wall is maybe 100 square feet. At 200 miles per hour, that's 40,000 pounds of force trying to rip it off your house. This is why categories matter. This is why a Category 3 is survive in a reinforced interior room, and a Category 5 is evacuate or you're probably going to die. The physics don't care about your courage. They don't care about your supplies. They care about whether your structure can withstand the force, and most can't. Tornado force calculation is even more brutal because it's rotational. That 2x4 I mentioned earlier? In straight-line wind, it tumbles. In a tornado, it spins like a drill bit. The rotational component adds penetration force. This is why tornado debris doesn't just knock things over, it impales them. Here's the reality nobody wants to hear. Sometimes there's nowhere to go. You're in a mobile home in Tornado Alley. You've got 5 minutes of warning. There's no public shelter within reach, and you're about to find out why mobile homes account for half of all tornado deaths despite being a tiny fraction of housing. Your options are ditch, vehicle, or mobile home. All of them are bad. Ditch is least bad. Sometimes you're on the coast. The evacuation routes are gridlocked because everyone waited until the last minute. The storm is 6 hours from landfall, and you're not getting out. Now you're riding out a Category 4 in a structure that's rated for Category 2. Your options are hope the storm weakens, hope the surge predictions are wrong, or hope your luck holds. None of those are strategies. They're prayers. This is the dark truth of storm survival. Luck still matters. Preparation improves your odds exponentially. It moves you from the 99% casualty rate to the 1% survivor rate. but it doesn't make you invincible. Nothing makes you invincible. The tornado that jogs left instead of right misses your house and hits your neighbors. The hurricane that makes an unexpected turn and strengthens right before landfall. The tree that falls on the one section of roof that isn't reinforced. These variables exist outside your control. What you can control, your knowledge of the threat, your preparation timeline, your structure hardening, your gear readiness, your decision-making under stress, your route planning, your family protocol. These are your multipliers. These are what separate "I survived" from "I got lucky." Here's your choice right now. You can close this video and go back to trusting that the weather service will save you, that your basic basement will be enough, that storms always miss your area because they have so far. Or you can open a new tab right now and start mapping your local topology. Identify every public shelter within a 10-mile radius. Note the entrance orientations. Calculate your drive time from home, from work, from your kids' school. Pull up your local building codes and find out what your structure is rated for. If you're in a hurricane zone and your house was built before 2000, it's probably not rated for modern storm standards. Find out. Know the number. Then decide if you're evacuating or fortifying, and start building your supply cache accordingly. Create a physical checklist for your 72-hour hurricane protocol. Laminate it. Post it where you can see it. When the storm is 3 days out, you don't think. You execute. Water, food, fuel, medical, communications, structure hardening. Line by line, no improvisation. And here's the final action step that 1% will think about and 0.1% will actually do. Schedule a practice drill. Pick a weekend. Execute your entire protocol as if the storm is real. Find out how long it takes to get everyone to the safe room. Find out which gear you forgot. Find out which kids complain and slow the process. Fix these problems now, not during the actual emergency. The difference between survivors and casualties isn't intelligence. It's not resources. It's not luck. It's the willingness to take uncomfortable action before the emergency forces you to. 99% of people will watch this video and feel slightly more informed, but take zero action. 1% will think about taking action. 0.1% will actually do the work. Run the numbers on yourself. Which category are you actually in? Because the storm doesn't care about your intentions. It cares about your preparation. Subscribe if you're part of the 0.1% who actually execute instead of just consume. Drop a comment with your location and the biggest storm threat in your region, tornado, hurricane, or both, and I'll tell you which protocol to prioritize. Class dismissed. Welcome to the Storm Protocol. Your move.